So welcome to the show, Amitay. So glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Jen. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, so I'm so glad I met you and we were introduced through your podcast, Biohacking Beauty. And
Correct.
I've taken a listen. It's fairly new, so I've listened to all of your episodes. Love them all. I get something out of each one. There's beautiful pearls.
Great.
And you have a great skincare line, Young Goose. And I haven't started using it yet, but I'm really excited about the ingredients. They're super innovative and really unlike anything else on the market. So, I wanted to cover today the top 5 biohacks for beauty, top 5 beauty biohacks. So that's why I called on you today. So let's jump into that. What are your tips?
Great. So first of all, I kind of mentioned before we started this conversation, and that's very important for me for people to understand that we're looking in. Biohacking is a field that evolves all the time. It's basically, you can call it the Sherlock Holmes investigation of bettering ourselves, because what we really are doing is we're looking at a mechanism in the body that maybe wanes over time, or really could use a boost, or we could improve ourselves by boosting it, and then kind of really researching how can we interact with that aspect, and through that really bettering the whole system. So when looking at really dividing biohacking into 5 things that I can recommend, that's the approach I took. The approach was, how can we give the listener a direction that then they can pick up on that thread, and continue their own research. So I wanted to kind of uh,
Yeah,
keep
I
that in
kind of
mind.
I kind of jumped ahead
Okay.
because I'm so excited to dive into this information. You have so much. And after we talked last time, we talked
Yeah.
another 30 minutes afterwards because it's just never ending with your wisdom. But I want to take a step back and for you to tell your story and what got you here, because obviously that's very important with your background and how it
Yeah.
applies to what you're doing nowadays.
Sounds great. So my background is you could call it out of left field, because my first job really in life was to be a soldier. I was a special forces operator in the Israeli military. I was in charge of recon in the military, in a special forces unit, and you could probably say it's the farthest thing from beauty there is, right? This is definitely not something that creates more beautiful people in the world, inside or out. So after a few years of doing that, I felt like my calling was doing exactly the opposite. I felt um, touching people's lives positively was something I really wanted to pursue. So I delved into the beauty industry, and through the tools I've acquired in the military of managing an operation, and interacting with individuals in order to create a system that worked, I uh, I got into a few, you know, high executive roles in some beauty companies, involving some innovative technologies such as light therapy, a few anti-aging companies, and Young Goose, which is my skincare brand, is really the my baby, right? I took what I've learned from over a decade of working for other companies who are really innovative, looking at what's missing in today's, you can call it, beauty market, and we're going to delve more into that, because it's obviously way more than skincare. Our skin is an organ, and I bet your listeners hear that often. But the better we take care of ourselves, the better our skin is going to look, and vice versa. So gathering all that information up, and trying to fill in the gaps as far as the beauty industry, and trying to be innovative. For me, it's really important that not necessarily being first, but looking at it in a fun way, looking at it on where we can really, really, really push the envelope and improve. And that is our guiding principles. Obviously, also bettering our audience. This is very important to us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So where did the name come from, Young Goose, though? Where's that name from? It's
That
pretty
name, so
unique.
Yes, it's first of all, it's an interesting story because we didn't start up as Young Goose. We started as a R&D company called Hormesis.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
Yes, I love that. And that was our first name. And when we looked at, coming to market, that name was already taken in the supplement realm. And we decided, we don't know where it's going to go. Our guiding principle is bettering our audience. And if it would have to be through supplementation, we're going to get there as well. So it was very important for us to have a unique name. And Young Goose consisted of a lot of elements. So I was called Goose growing up. Um, we liked the ring Young to go with it, and it was a fun name. And
Yeah.
again, one of the guiding principles is having fun, being silly, being innovative. So it just kind of matched all around.
Totally. Yeah. I tell my kids every day you want to work a little, you want to play a little, you want to think a little bit, and you want to relax a little bit, right? So I think we overlook play a lot, and it's as important as connection, right? And it is a way to connect with people.
And you're saying something that it's probably a weird example to give, but I was just thinking about it, that I am obsessed with jujitsu. I'm obsessed with sports in general and jujitsu specifically. And, not to get too much into it, it's really like chess with your body. So if someone doesn't like that analogy, they can think of the new chess series on Netflix that everyone's obsessed about.
Yeah, the
Queen's
Queen's
Gambit.
Gambit. The Queen's Gambit. I
And,
saw that. It was great.
and as a biohacker, doing jujitsu, trying to solve problems the most efficiently,
Hmm.
learning well is one of my MOs, right? So that's one of the things I'm dedicating time and thought to. And reading research, having fun while learning is 3 to 10 times, you learn 3 to 10 times faster if you're having fun while you're learning something, while you're expanding your horizons, rather than if you're doing something monotonous that you're just doing to do it, and it's not fun for you.
Yeah, or if you're too intensive and you're in high beta state, it kind of converts you a little bit into more of a creative alpha state, which is uh, definitely, going to progress yourself in society more if we're in that creative state and that place of play. Okay,
Yes.
so with that being said, let's jump into some of these beauty biohacks.
Okay, so again, kind of going going back to what I said before, I wanted to divide it into more like categories, and then um, you know the listener can have fun and explore their own path within these categories. So the first one that I feel like is probably uh, the first one that's fun to touch on is really topical things that we can do in order to stimulate our skin to look better. And that's a very important word that I said, to stimulate, because again, if we're looking at it from a biohacking realm, if we want to look at it from a detective looking at which direction we should go for, we want to give our skin homework. What happens when we grow older is that our skin slows down its regenerative processes. And one of the things that we can do is to ask it to regenerate more. And you can see evidence for it outside of skincare as well. If we don't if we don't lift weights, for example, when we grow older, we lose a lot of the density in our bones. What we don't ask our body to do, it's not going to do. The environment that we introduce our body to is the thing that's going to cause it to grow and evolve. So topically stimulating renewal is very important. And that is, again, a subject that you can really, really, really investigate and find new and innovative ways to do. Obviously, one that's very popular right now is microneedling. And
Yeah.
microneedling is a fun umbrella because it can go anywhere from buying a roller that you roll on your face through Amazon or through a company, not necessarily any company, honestly, on the market that sells a roller. you really can learn what is the depth that the roller rolls on your skin, and kind of advance as you go, like a gym. Like think of a small gym, uh, from the home aspect of it to the professional aspect of it. Today you can go to a professional, to dermatologist, to a medical spa, and get something that is called either a vampire facial or professional microneedling. So professional microneedling goes deeper into the skin, stimulates more of that renewal, and a lot of times what a medical professional would do is to take some of your blood, go through a process where they distill the positive healing aspect, pro healing aspects of the blood. So think of an injury, a blood comes there and it carries with it a lot of the nutrients, a lot of the building blocks to repair that damaged layer. So by drawing your blood, creating an injury that is controlled, that is contained and positive, and then distilling those building blocks and resupplying them to the skin really does wonders for renewal. And you're really looking at a closed loop, right? It's not like we're going to damage our skin and we're going to get to it, eat horrible food. We're not going to sleep. We're going to go to the sun and bake ourselves. That's an open system. We're not being supportive of the treatment that we just asked our skin to do.
Hmm.
So it's important to make sure that you follow up and that you support this process positively, which we're going to get to.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about skin hormesis, basically. So,
Yeah,
our bodies are so much different than a machine. So, if we look at
yeah,
like a car or a machine or our phones, the more we use it, it tends to wear out. Whereas the human body, like you said, is the complete opposite. The less we use it, the more it wears out. And the more we stimulate it, the stronger it gets. So we exercise and that makes our bones stronger. It makes our muscles stronger, which our muscles are really an endocrine organ. I mean, they
yeah,
basically, run our metabolism when we're not doing anything, right? So having, muscle strength is so important. And then also with skin. So a lot of injury can cause a scar. A small amount of controlled injury, like with microneedling that you mentioned, or with even using massage and techniques while you're applying your skincare, that's stimulating, you're putting pressure on the area, which stimulates the lymphatics to drain, and also for blood flow to come to the area to deliver nutrients, oxygen. But it also stimulates the collagen in response to, like, if you got punched or something, it would get stronger, right? So
yeah,
you're doing micro stimulation, and when you're making micro channels in the skin, what happens is the body responds by producing just enough collagen to make it thicker, not too much to make a scar.
yeah,
I did an episode with Sandy Newton on microneedling, and we talked about the derma rollers. I'm not a huge fan because the way that they tear through the skin, they can cause some shearing forces. So I
okay,
prefer the stamping because it's just
yeah,
more controlled. And then you mentioned PRP, which we can draw blood and pull out the platelet-rich plasma, or the PRF, the platelet-rich fibrin, and then you apply that to the skin or other ingredients, and it goes through those microchannels, and it stimulates the stem cells to kind of rev up and produce
yeah,
fresh skin, because our skin doesn't turn over as quickly as we get older, and that's why it looks dry. It's not really dry. What it is dead skin cells that are not coming off because there's no motors revving from below making
yeah.
fresh skin. And then there's also something called exosomes that we'll use on top of the skin as well. And I was going to do that tonight, actually.
Interesting. Are you doing it from a powder form or are you doing it from a liquid form?
Yeah, I use a company called Benev, and
Yeah.
it's a liquid form. Well, we mix it. I reconstitute it and then apply it as I go, as I microneedle. I didn't want to do it before this conversation because I didn't want to scare
I'm,
you, but now I know I could have.
I'm going to tell you something interesting. I don't know if we spoke about exosomes before, you and I privately,
Yeah.
but Benev, the so what Benev did is that they have a contract with a Korean company called their eczema formulation is called Celtweet. They're called Exoco Bio,
Okay.
and that is a company that has gotten millions upon millions of dollars from the Korean government for research on exosomes. So that's a very good collaboration there
Interesting.
with from Benev and Exoco Bio, and people could definitely really follow Exoco Bio. That's a great company to follow. They're out of Korea, and and I really like, the direction that you took this conversation, the difference between machines, our car, and our body, because we really, I really meet a lot of people that look at their body like a car. A car really would drive, it wouldn't give you a lot of um, a lot of warning before something bad's going to happen. So it's going to drive well, it's going to drive well. For example, if you don't fill up your gas tank, your car's going to drive just fine until it's going to run out of gas and it's not going to drive anymore. Our bodies do not work this way. So, unfortunately, anyone does it in a specific aspect of their life. They're really, persisting with what they're doing until a big calamity happens. They don't really notice the bodies or life's small hints that things are starting to go bad. And, we can really go over different processes in our skin and our body, but our body really looks, if our cells have half a tank, if our mitochondria, for example, the powerhouse of the cell, work in half its capacity, it's not repairing, or your cells do not repair optimally until it goes to zero capacity.
Yeah.
Everything slows down. If your metabolism is lower, it doesn't need to be zero for you to gain weight. It can be slightly lower, and you're going to continue the habits that you had before, and you're going to gain weight. So it's really important for us to, as humans, to notice that we're waiting for big calamities to happen, and that until then we don't change our habits, and really consciously be conscious of our habits and change them before things go haywire. I think that's really the topic of this conversation
Yeah.
from a meta perspective, is how do we take charge as early as possible of processes that are happening, and how do we improve them?
Right. And we might be looking at beauty because that's obvious and that's what we see in the mirror every day.
Yeah.
But that's really a representation of what's going on with all the organs, and we've talked about this again and again. And, if something's awry in the skin, something's probably awry somewhere else. I know we have a lot to cover, but I just want to jump back a little bit to things that you can topically use to nourish the skin, to stimulate the
But
skin to be optimal. So what are some of the things that you think people should focus on?
I'm going to touch on a few things that are unique. First of all, let's start with something that's not unique, which is vitamin A or retinol, which is a very cool product in general, and people should, again, go on a journey, start very low as far as concentration, because it can be cause irritation. But really, what retinol does, it asks our cells to turn over, as we spoke before, and asks our cells to renew. And we can also supplement on it as a supplement. But this is maybe something people have heard before, just to connect ourselves to topicals that we can use. But I think the star of the topical biohacking world in the last year or two is a specific copper peptide that is called GHKCU, or copper tripeptide 1. Okay, and because again, we don't want to go into maybe too deep into the mechanisms and what happens, but really to stay on benefits. And if someone's interested, there is a lot of research. Just Google it.
Hmm.
GHKCU has been shown to increase and affect positively anything from hair growth, men and women, skin health, skin thickness. So as we grow older, there's something called glycation, which diminishes skin thickness, and GHKCU has been shown to target that, as well as other anti-aging benefits that it has. So people could look for creams that have over 2% GHKCU.
Thank you for saying that, because products will advertise things and it's not even enough percentage. Sort of like when you get drinks at the store, they say, and it contains X, Y, and Z, and there's such minuscule amounts.
Yes, and I think it's my real duty to give people the behind the scenes of the beauty industry. And one of the things that happened is that, and maybe if someone remembers this interview in a few years, they're going to see a lot of, you know, prominent skincare companies start using GHKCU. Why? Because when you're a big company, what you're looking for is the current buzzword. You really want to use what people associate with good, high quality skincare. We can see it, for example, recently with turmeric.
Hmm.
You see a lot of companies use turmeric in their formulations. Turmeric is a great product, and we have turmeric in one of our creams. But we can really see how, a few years ago, when uh, turmeric was just starting to get some attention as anti-inflammatory, we didn't see creams with it. Now, when it's on every shelf of every department store slash pharmacy slash whatever, and it's one of the best sellers, now it is in skincare. But because a big company is more concerned with not getting in trouble, with you know really giving you a good experience without causing irritation, without really pushing the envelope, the levels of concentration on average are going to be much lower than needed or than possible. And again, we're talking about biohacking, so we're
Yeah.
talking about what is possible.
Exactly, what's optimal. So what Amitai is saying is basically, just because an ingredient is included in skincare, the more active the ingredient, whether it's retinol or, another active, it can be a little irritating to the skin because it's trying to cause cell turnover, which can appear as exfoliation on the skin. So there's a fine line between too much strength and having some irritation versus just having small amounts that aren't going to do anything, but yet being able to advertise and market that exists in the product.
Yeah.
So, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And if to take you on a little journey with something I was working on is resveratrol. So resveratrol, again, is something that you're starting to see in skincare now because it is starting to be a buzzword.
Mhm.
It's a very potent antioxidant, and it also activates genes that are in charge of anti-aging in our DNA. So keeping everything intact as far as our DNA and epigenetics, basically how our cells understand what they need to do. And resveratrol, really, you can see that you need high amounts for it to be effective. Unfortunately, if I would just apply it to my skin, these high amounts would be irritating because the skin has a hard time breaking it down. So we can see why something can give us better results if it's in high concentration, but it is also more, I'm not going to call it dangerous, but there is more danger in irritation.
Mhm.
So an innovative company is going to look for a way of kind of bypassing that, looking at what mechanism can we use in order to crack open that code. And what we did, for example, is ferment resveratrol. We found a patented process in which we use enzymes that are normally in our digestive tract and are breaking down resveratrol, and we ferment resveratrol with those enzymes, therefore breaking up resveratrol, and that way it can better get absorbed in the skin, and then we can dial up the the percentages even up to 50 times higher without causing irritation. So just as an example, how do we biohack that process? How do we really find an innovative way to hack that process?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so great. That was going to be one of my other questions, is just because an ingredient is contained in a skincare line, it doesn't mean that it actually gets to where it needs to be in the skin. So that's where the science comes into play,
Yeah,
where, you really have to find a reputable company that not only has the ingredients in there, but has it in a formulation in a way that it's stable and it doesn't break down until it gets to your skin. And then once it gets to your skin, it's able to get to where it needs to be in the skin to
correct.
actually nourish the skin. And that's what I
Yeah.
love, the beauty of doing all of these things from the outside in and the inside out, because I do take resveratrol every day and I do GHKCU peptides as well,
How do you do
injectable.
it, if I can ask? Do you inject them? Do you put
I
them topically?
inject.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
that is something I wanted to kind of, mention, that most of those things can affect you at a specific point if they're formulated well and you apply them, for example, on your hair directly.
mhm.
But they also can benefit you as a whole if you would be taking them, in an optimal form for them to affect you as a whole. So some can be supplemented through pills, some have to be injected into your belly fat, like someone would do with insulin. So just to kind of, put a small caveat there.
Get it from all angles, right? Okay, so
Yeah,
beauty biohack number one is topically nourish your skin, and
yeah,
there's so many things to look into that we kind of touched on there.
yeah.
what's
I like
what's your
really to call it skin homework. Really, you could think of how do I give the skin the right direction.
what are your top three ingredients you think people should look for, or that you have in your skincare line that you think are the hero product, the hero
Okay.
ingredients?
So first of all, GHKCU is something that for now we have incorporated, by the way, 7% into our
Nice.
eye cream. And the reason is this is where we really, our eye skin, under our eye skin is extremely sensitive and extremely thin, and is really
Responsive.
suffers from.
It's very
Is
responsive to products
correct,
because the skin is so
correct,
thin
correct.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and really suffers from glycation as we grow older. So incorporating GHKCUs there which we are, looking to incorporate later on, again, is something that is, that we're looking into and we're excited about extremely. The second one would have to be fermented resveratrol. It's something that we have built two products around, whether it would be our main product, which is called Care, or its booster, which is Care Boost. But the main ingredient that we love is something that we're going to touch in a second as far as supplementation, but is NAD plus.
Great.
NAD is,
Before you jump into that though, before you
yeah,
talk about like NAD as your next thing, I just want to ask you, are there certain times of day people should be using GHKCU, should be using resveratrol? And are there any other ingredients they should not be mixed with at the same time?
it's an excellent question, and the answer is no. The answer is, what I love about both of these ingredients is that they also improve how your skin behaves with other ingredients. So I'll give you a small example. Both of them have been shown to lessen the impact of harmful UV rays on your skin when you go outside, as opposed to, for example, which we spoke about, retinol, which if you use retinol and went to the sun, your skin is more sensitive and is going to actually accumulate more sun damage. Like, think of if you got a scratch and now you're going to the sun, it's going to get more pigmented, etc. So both of these ingredients, as far as that is concerned, are why they are called super ingredients. And so to speak a little bit about, is that the question, or
Yeah,
do you
that's
have?
great. And then
Okay,
you can mix them with other things. So if they
correct.
would you okay. Okay, great. Perfect. I love it. Okay, so NAD plus, go ahead.
So NAD plus in general has been the highlight of anti-aging research or publication in the last 5 years. And the reason is because if we took all the NAD away, before I explain what it is, if we took all the NAD away from someone's body, they would be dead in 30 seconds. So just to understand how important this molecule is. And what it does, it really facilitates energy production in the body. So as we grow older, by the time we're 60 years old, we have less than 50% of the NAD we started it with so between 30 and 50, we lose about 50%. And we can think of it, again, not like an engine where it doesn't really matter how much fuel it has, it runs until it doesn't have any fuel anymore, and then it shuts down. There are about 600 processes that rely on NAD, And a lot of them are what we call NAD plus minus dependent. So if there isn't a certain level of NAD in the body, they don't even bother. And that is very important to understand as far as anti-aging, because we mentioned before anti-aging genes or anti-aging processes or renewal processes in our body and in our skin. And these processes are NAD plus minus dependent, and they just don't happen if you don't have enough NAD, period. So it doesn't matter what we're going to ask of our skin and our body as far as homework. If our body cannot perform these functions, we're not in, let's use the word homeostasis, we're not in equilibrium as far as what we're asking and what our skin can do. And obviously, the wheels start falling off. So that's a snowball, right? More and more and more and more processes cannot sustain themselves, and they knock down some other processes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the things that we really want to maintain high levels of. Before we touch, about the innovative way we use it in skincare, it's important to know that intermittent fasting elevates NAD levels. High intensity interval training elevates NAD levels. Sauna elevates NAD levels. So and again, that is something I would highly, highly recommend going on a journey, because there is much more that we're not going to get into there. Things, that increase in the body when we age, that break down NAD. So that's a journey which someone really needs to go and see how far they want to take it. But again, as a company, that what we're trying to do is make sure we give our customer the easiest daily habit for anti-aging, and really looking at how can we create magic, right? How can we bottle up this fantastic formula that takes care of everything for you, and all you need to do is apply it, and even not make it complicated, so you don't need to apply 10 things. We really thought of outside the box as far as NAD delivered where we want it to our skin. And we've partnered up with scientists from the Hebrew University in Israel, which is, again, where I'm originally from, and from the Weizmann Institute, which you could think of as like the MIT of Israel, and researchers here in the US. And we are using a patent called NR Noble, which NR is a building block for NAD. So it's a much smaller molecule that our skin can actually absorb. So NAD is kind of huge, and the skin is very confused when you give it to it. It has no idea what to do with it. So what we're doing, we're giving it a building block that the skin does know what to do with. So that's kind of the building block that NAD comes to the skin as. And then the skin has, a preset mechanism that it activates and says, oh, I know what that is. I'm going to make NAD out of it. So that's kind of a simple explanation of what happens. And we coat it with a special coating that drives it to where we want it in the skin. And then we layer it with a lot of supporting ingredients, such as an enhanced resveratrol that is fermented, and CoQ10, and a lot of good things. But as far as NAD, yeah, that's our innovation. That magic molecule that the head researcher in Harvard,
David
in the Harvard
Sinclair.
clinics, David Sinclair, the famous David Sinclair, calls it the closest we've gotten to the fountain of youth. And there are countless wars behind the scenes about patents in this area. So that's an interesting subject in and on its own. And we are very proud of the fact that we are the first one to present it in the US, especially. And
what product is it in? Which of your products?
So the product that it is in is called Care, and it's a nighttime repair cream. And the reason, again, I'm going to give you a little spoiler to your NAD research adventures. NAD peaks in the body 8 hours after you gave it those building blocks. And that is why we have designed this product, really you can put it anytime, but the reason we kind of guide you and say, hey, that's for the night, is because your NAD is going to peak just where you want it, just when you wake up, and you know, um, support you during your day where your skin is getting the brunt of the damage.
Oh, so what about when people supplement? Should they be taking it at night instead of the morning?
So that's an excellent question, and I just had that discussion with a chiropractor that started to carry our line, and they had the same question. So what's up? What's going on with supplementation? So definitely yes. I would recommend, and not me. Research recommends supplementing at night so it can peak in the morning. But in general, it really depends on your, on your feeding time.
And your
It
circadian
really,
rhythm. Like if I'm a morning
yes,
person, I'll probably want to take it
yes,
at night, whereas some people maybe want to exercise later in the day. So the morning might be better for them. I know David Sinclair takes it in the morning, which is
yes,
why
yes.
I did it, but I would prefer to have more energy in the morning. So I'm going to play around with taking that at night instead.
Yep. What I would say is resveratrol is fat soluble. So when you take it as far as a supplement form, you want to take it with some kind of fatty food like um,
Bulletproof coffee.
bulletproof coffee, yogurt. That's what David Sinclair does. He takes it with yogurt. I
Hmm.
am not a big fan of dairy
Me neither.
because of the inflammation it creates.
I
But
agree.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so that's tip number 2 is increase the magical ingredient NAD plus in the body through the
correct.
ways we talk about. Okay, what's number 3?
So number three, and we've touched on it before, so it's silly to dedicate a one of the exploration paths to it, but it's very important, and that's one of your building blocks of your system, which is supplementation or nutrition. And
But that's
as
such a
far as
huge area. I mean, that's so
correct,
huge. We can't hit on it enough, right?
correct, and that is why what I chose is nutrition and nutrition and skin health focused on deficiencies.
Okay.
Okay.
Explain.
So again, nutrition is just huge. Even if we talk about what kind of diet we're going to engage in, it's important to know that keto, from one hand, is very conducive with hormesis, which is a positive stress we're putting on the body, and therefore the body kind of overreacts. The body kind of repairs itself more than what it would if we didn't do it. On the other hand, our cells that build our skin rely on glucose, so they rely on carbs. So what I'm saying is it is a huge subject, and what I really would direct someone is to look at minimizing deficiencies. So we can think again, we can go back to the homework that we gave our body, and then we didn't only give it homework, we also applied some magical ingredients on our skin that support the process, the homework that we gave the body to do. Now the body needs to utilize those directions that we gave it and the energy and support that we gave it, and it needs now to use the building blocks to our cells, to our skin, to collagen, to elastin, to the barrier, whatever it is, it now needs to utilize building blocks. So it is very important that it gets the best building blocks, and that we get from good nutrition. So a few of the things that I wanted to mention, first of all, is vitamin A as a supplement or as an ingredient that we're looking for in our food, and that exists in liver, that exists obviously in carrots, orange foods.
The precursor, yeah.
That's correct. That exists in eggs, and so that's definitely something that we want in our nutrition, and that a lot of people are deficient in.
As opposed to supplementing, because if a woman is pregnant and they're supplementing with vitamin A, they can overdose and cause
Yeah,
birth defects with a baby. Whereas if you're getting it from real food, not so much,
correct. And what
unless it's
also what
precursor. Go ahead.
correct, yes. And what we are also seeing that if we're giving high amounts vitamin A, most of them anyway end up in the liver. So it's wanting to say, really, you can take it easy. You can just make sure you're getting enough and not go overboard. That's something that's very easy to make sure you're getting enough of.
So, how do you recommend people? Because I agree, I think most of us are deficient in vitamin A. And I don't know many people want to take liver, right? So, I mean, what do you recommend for people? Because I mean, vitamin A is essential for cell turnover. That's what we're getting at here, and we
Correct.
use that for acne in the form of Accutane. As basically a kind of a purified vitamin A that's not going to, damage your liver as much as if you took tons of vitamin A, but we still have to monitor the liver. But when you're taking a supplement, you can take more than if you're doing it through diet to the point where it can have side effects. So, like, what do you recommend from diet that most people will
Fir-
actually do?
First of all, for the for the liver enthusiasts in the crowd, technically speaking, if you could even overdose if you took enough raw liver. So just saying, not that
Usually
I
not
would,
going to happen. I
not
did
that I
hear,
would,
I heard
yeah, go
somewhere
ahead.
that if you get ground beef, from obviously grass fed ground beef, and you
Uh-huh.
do 25% liver and 75% muscle meat, that's pretty palatable. I have yet to do it.
Okay, so first of all, I would say probably the easiest way, the vitamin A starter package, which would also increase omega-3 fatty acids, which is actually my next, little tip there, is cod liver oil.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so
And now they have it in lemon flavor, etc., which really doesn't taste like fish oil. I don't recommend it because you wouldn't know if it's rancid.
yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. Obviously, consume it within a short amount of time, but try it without any flavoring. If you can't do it, just go for the flavoring and make sure you're keeping it in your fridge after you opened it, or in a dry, shaded area beforehand before you opened it. So that is probably my entry level.
Is there a brand you recommend to make sure it's distilled properly
There
and
is a
like low
brand that
mercury? Yeah,
there is a brand that I recommend, and I'm blanking out now on the name, but I hope I'm going to remember it soon.
sure.
That um, um, okay, so I'm gonna tell you about a specific brand of omega-3 fatty acids that I've just discovered undergoes a different process in the US. And that is actually, so now I'm going to be really looking for a different brand, which is Nordic Natural.
Yeah, I've always recommended them. I think they're great.
Yes, they're great, but unfortunately, now that they've ramped up
Mm.
production in the US, they're processing their oil here, and I have been starting to get some comments about the quality here in the US.
Oh,
Unfortunately, because they're just amazing. I would say something to look into is a supplement called Matter, and that is by a company called Elysium.
what
Elysium,
Matter?
yes.
Okay.
And they are also making a form of NAD precursor, an
Yeah.
NAD building block or cheat code of raising NAD levels, which is called NR, and that's the name of the molecule, and their product is called Basis.
Yeah,
That's the
they've been
name
on
of
my radar for maybe 4 years now. They've been on my radar.
so
Yeah.
that is so they are great. When I mentioned you know some drama behind the scenes, they're involved in some drama. but I would tell you that their, their board, their medical board is just, you know, amazing. They're
Yep.
superstars. So that is something I definitely recommend. If you want another, just not to get into its ingredients, but if someone wants to look at a new company with amazing researchers called Novos, which is Novos, they have an amazing delivery system and two supplements. One of them is an NAD precursor, which is NMN, which is a competitor of NR, and the other one is their basic product, which is Novos Core, which again has a plethora of anti-aging ingredients, and such as calcium, AKG. And again, that's something that people can research. Highly
Okay.
recommend at least to try it and see if you see a difference or tell a
Good.
difference.
What about micronutrient testing? Do you recommend people do that or do
Yeah,
you ever recommend like zinc, selenium, magnesium, which we know are deficient in the soil?
I don't know if you got my notes here
Oh no,
before the
I'm
show.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
So yeah, zinc and selenium. So
Okay. Well,
zinc,
like
selenium, which you just mentioned. So I'm going to go to the next one
wait,
because I
wait,
really want to
go
move.
back to zinc. Go back to zinc. So what form of zinc do you like?
Um, so it's, to me, it's not about the zinc; it's how we get it to our cell.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is why I would look again, and I'm trying to make things simple here and let people continue their journey from here.
Of
What I would mention is the way to deliver the zinc into the cell relies on a vehicle. The easiest vehicle for us to supplement together with zinc would be quercetin.
Oh, nice. Q
And,
U E
and
QUERCETIN. Well, there's been a lot of media coverage for quercetin this year.
correct, exactly, because there are some evidence showing that zinc supports our immune system. It's very important to fight off or to deal with COVID, and therefore quercetin, which is, to really simplify it, is its enabler or makes it more effective, has risen in importance as well. And
The other thing I like quercetin for, sorry to cut you off, but the other thing I like quercetin for is people who are kind of itchy and have a lot of histamine in their
mhm,
body or hives. And quercetin helps lower histamine levels without causing the appetite like antihistamines do. So I do
right.
love quercetin because I've been one of those people my whole life.
Yeah, so for me, for example, from my service, I have done something that is called epinephrine-dependent histamine release, which means that when someone catches me in traffic, I'm very itchy. So if you live in Miami, you're itchy a lot. You're itchy a lot. Uh,
Oh my gosh.
so
Okay. So taking the zinc with quercetin, I had not heard of that. That is a great tip.
it is, and so that is to me much more important than specific form. Really, flexibility is key. Um, um, And to kind of summarize supplementation and deficiencies, I wanted to talk, very quickly about antioxidants. So when we get older in general, our energy production system in our body, in our cells, creates more waste. And I apologize going back to examples about machinery, but just imagine machinery that is not as clean. So an engine that is not as clean and not as efficient and kind of starts to damage itself while it's working, and things go haywire from there. So the waste that our energy producing systems make are free radicals or oxidative stress. And in order to fight that oxidative stress, we need antioxidants. And these antioxidants, and that's not something new. But what is new are specific antioxidants, which are very important. One, and that's something that we're investing a lot of research in, as far as a combined supplement cream, is astaxanthin, which is
Love
the
astaxanthin.
reason. Yes, you see, in English, I need some help with
I
with
love
that.
astaxanthin. So astaxanthin is the pigment that you find in like shrimp or wild Alaskan salmon from eating krill, right? From eating krill.
Correct.
And then they take on that pigment. And when we eat that food, we take on that beautiful pigment to our face. So you eat potato chips all day, you look like you have a white potato chip face, like really sallow, really dull. You eat colorful foods and vegetables, and you have color in your face and vibrancy to your face. So that's why I love astaxanthin. With fish oil, I like to take it with that because I think it pairs really well.
Yes, correct.
Um, and then
But
is there a,
but
yeah, so go ahead.
so just some nerdy skincare biohacking comments. There is wonderful research showing that combining it with a cream that has astaxanthin increases, synergistic. They supplement each other. So 1 + 1 = 3 in that case.
Wait,
And
mixing
it has,
astaxanthin with what? A cream, like in a cream form?
yes, yes, in a cream form.
No, I don't
And
have it. I don't know any products that have astaxanthin in it topically. Does it
some of them do.
penetrate?
We're looking at effective ways of using it. We're
Yeah.
looking at being, cool and innovative, but you don't have to. You can just supplement on it and take it in a cream. You can even break um, soft gels of it into your cream.
Hmm. And it gets to where it needs to be, or we're not
So
sure
we're
yet.
looking at more effective ways. But yes, especially in the top layers of the skin, what's interesting is that it acts to negate some of the damaging effects of UV rays. So especially if we're looking at seasonal changes in skincare, definitely or in supplementation, that's definitely something that we want to look at when we're getting a lot of sun.
Okay, nice. Okay, so astaxanthin, I'm a huge fan of taking that orally, but also getting it from food, right?
Correct.
And farm raised salmon does not have astaxanthin in it. They're given dye pellets to turn the color of the fish pink. So if you hold, wild sockeye salmon next to farm raised salmon, you'll see a difference in color, and you're not going to get the same benefits from your skin in your
Correct.
skin. Yeah. Okay.
Unfortunately, in the mind of or in the what I try to do all the time is communicate simply and start at a simple starting point. And that with food, a lot of the times we can say just follow the color. Unfortunately, as far as fish, that's not something we can do.
Yeah. Or even
Uh,
apples and things like that, because the
yeah,
food industry has gotten so smart that they'll, pump carbon monoxide, under the skin and do sort of crazy things because our eyes are attracted to color because we
yeah,
know, naturally our bodies know that color is healthy for us and it's high nutrition, and that's what we want because we'll actually be hungry all day long if we have low nutrition food. We'll keep eating and eating and eating. And I think that's why people have problems with weight because we're not getting nutrients. We're nutrient deficient, so we keep eating more calories. So it's important to do the research and the homework that Amitai keeps telling us to do so that we can
yeah.
make the right choices with this knowledge you're hearing today. Okay, so antioxidants, we have astaxanthin.
Yeah, so obviously, drinking a lot of green tea. Just a little caveat there is making sure that if you're drinking it later in the day, it doesn't have caffeine in order for you to sleep well. Vitamin E, um,
Do you care if it's
CoQ10.
do you care if vitamin E is tocotrienols or tocopherols? Because I like the tocotrienols a little more.
Yes, tocotrienols are definitely have definitely. I've seen better results for me with them, and
Me too.
but in general, I feel like a soft gel form is the best form to take vitamin E. Um, which, by the way, just as a note, looking at vitamin D research, um, I prefer taking vitamin D in liquid form instead of pills because it really is utilized better. And if you look at research showing overdose of vitamin D, it is almost only possible to overdose on liquid form. And obviously, no one's following guidelines of a medical professional or even the guidelines of the box is not going to overdose. I'm just saying it proves to us that high levels can be reached through liquid and not through pills.
I agree. I like the liquid. I use pure encapsulations or Douglas Laboratories vitamin D3 with K2. And as a mom, it's a great way to throw it on some eggs for the kids and they don't notice.
Yeah,
So,
or in a good shake. I mean, like
yeah.
it's good. Don't shake it together with the other ingredients. But if someone ever takes supplements in liposomal form, in a form that is kind of coated with oils, okay, with little balls of oil that allow us to absorb them better. Um, in general, if you put it in smoothies, don't mix it because then you're breaking that little protective layer that they have. Pour it into the smoothie when you're done mixing it and drink it like that. And that also applies to vitamin D. And it's very important that you said, yeah, I like taking it with vitamin K2 as well. I specifically am using Thorn, which they have it.
Yep. It's the
But
same. Yeah, they're both
yes,
great.
Pure Encapsulations are a great company that you can just trust their product and just go for whatever they're offering.
And Thorn has a great resveratrol too. Well, they both do actually. They both have some really good
Thorn,
resveratrols.
so again, for the sake of simplicity, NAD, really what we want to take it for from these 600 processes is that process of repair. Okay, that's very important for us because if we think of aging in general, it's all of those times that our body tried to repair something and didn't do it optimally. And these stack up. So resveratrol is that um, accelerator pedal for repair. It just asks the body to repair. So NAD and resveratrol combined show great efficacy, and that's what Thorn is doing. What they have also added there are methyl groups. I believe in the form of trimethylglycine, but I could be wrong. And in order to use NAD, the body needs methyl groups. It's not mandatory. We don't even need to mention it, but they've done a great job of formulating one product that has that main ingredient and supporting ingredient. And that's what we're trying to do as well in our company and really provide like an all-in-one product. So I agree with you. It's called Resveracell. It's called
Yes,
Resveracell.
resveratrol. Thank you. I was blanking. Okay, so for your antioxidants, are you including astaxanthin, green tea, vitamin E, resveratrol,
CoQ10,
CoQ10? What about PQQ?
PQQ and CoQ10. So
Okay.
PQQ and CoQ10 both are coenzymes that are also antioxidants, and they're amazing, essential, um, and they support that energy producing product process in our cells, which is really the start of everything. Everything starts if our cells have the energy to do something or they don't. Something that we can touch very lightly on because this really requires professional help. And you asked before about blood uh,
Micronutrient
markers,
testing.
so
Yeah.
nutrient testing. The same way we can test for nutrients, we can test our hormones. And one of the most important things for skin health is our hormonal balance. So we can go to a medical professional, get a blood panel, look at our hormones, look if something is deficient, especially for perimenopausal or we're going through menopause or
I'm
or
raising my hand here.
men, when testosterone goes lower, or if they have excess estrogen. So a lot of things can go wrong. And a lot of it starts with your hormones. So looking for a professional and testing your hormones, balancing those levels is crazy important for us.
And on that note, I mean, you could be making adequate amounts of hormones. You could be a 30-year-old male who's making great amounts of hormones. And I did a podcast with a functional medicine doctor friend of mine, Dr. Elliot Dinetz. He's actually in Miami.
Okay.
He's phenomenal. And, men's hormone, testosterone in their 20s nowadays is kind of at the same level as a 70-year-old in the, wait, hold on. Yeah, a 70-year-old in the 1970s, because our environment and the endocrine disruptors in our environment, and also the amount of stress that we have in our daily lives. So when cortisol is up, it blocks the hormones from actually working. And that's why it's not as simple as just taking hormones. So if your hormones are off, you really need to work with someone who can help you with these lifestyle modalities to get your hormones back before you just start taking some.
Correct, correct, correct. And actually, that was my main point of something that we can do tomorrow is managing our stress levels. So stress levels affect our hormones significantly, and managing them, by the way, internally and externally. So as far as the environmental toxins we're exposed to, as far as our mental health, as far as inflammatory food, inflammatory processes, exposure to ionizing radiation. So all of these things that are stressors will affect our hormones. And by the way, something very interesting, plastics. So since the heavy start of heavy use of plastics since the 50s, as a man, I can talk about something I'm very interested in, which is sperm count, which has been declining dramatically, and we can really follow that. We can really,
And so has
create.
penis size. Penis size has been shrinking as well.
Well, I'm going to tell you something interesting. Not only penis size,
It's okay. We can handle it on this
but
podcast.
the distance between the anus
Penis. Yeah.
and the scrotum.
Yeah. The perineum has become more feminized. Yes.
Correct.
Because it's
So
supposed to be longer in
it's
men, and
supposed
it's
to be
getting,
twice as big in males than in females, and that's we can see it in many animals in general. But for men, it's supposed to be double the size, and it has been significantly decreasing with the time. And again, we can create a correlation between the use of plastics and which have hormone disruptors and the size of the perineum, which is the
yeah.
distance.
So what we think is happening, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, when women are pregnant, we're finding thousands and thousands of chemicals in umbilical cord, blood, and these plasticizers basically are getting into the bloodstream and causing these low level feminization of the male fetus, which is presenting in this way with decreased sperm count, decreased penis size, and decreased distance between the scrotum and the anus.
And
Did I
of
get that
course,
right?
yes, and of course, which is a byproduct of that in the milk of the mother.
Yeah, and then after birth, the milk of the
Yeah.
mother. Yeah, great. Great points. It's kind of terrifying, if we're able to see, when you think about evolution happening in thousands of years and we're seeing things in one or two generations, it's pretty scary the direction we're going.
It's scary, and unfortunately, this is the other side of what we're talking about here, which is biohacking, which is really looking at what kind of it's called the aggregation of marginal gains. Okay, if we take care of a lot of different aspects and we just improve them by a little bit, we can create an amazing difference in our lives. And unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. It doesn't only this equation doesn't only work to the positive. Unfortunately, it's much easier to have it work for the negative. So if we increase by a little bit and not by a lot, the amount of immunodisruptors, the amount of hormonal disruptors, the amount of artificial as opposed to natural sunlight we're getting, the exposure to blue light closer to our sleep time, etc., etc., etc. We can just tweak by a little bit all of those different aspects, which are being tweaked automatically when technology and our civilization evolves. The effect, the holistic effect of that is horrible. And we don't only see it in humans, by the way. One of the alarming things that happen with pesticides is that when we spray them here in Florida, okay, where it's very warm, they evaporate, they travel into lower climates, and then they fall with rain, they condense, they fall with rain, etc. And we can see levels of these these chemicals in mother's milk in very cold climates, such as northern Canada, the Arctic Circle, and we can also see it in animals where we have a lot of animals that cannot reproduce or that have a lot of genetic defects. And that is, again, if we understand that we're humans and we only are waiting for something grandiose to happen, and that's the only way we change our ways. If we even do that, okay, if we even change our ways when something big happens, we can definitely. There are signs that we should take care of those aspects because something big is already happening. It's just not to us specifically, but it's already there. So
But it will happen to us because
yeah,
everything affects everything. It's like the law of universal oneness. Like we're all interrelated. What affects you will affect me. So we
yeah,
need to change our mentality to realize like what affects other people. It's not about it. Oh, don't worry about that. That doesn't affect me. It does affect you.
yeah.
Everything affects everyone. We're all interconnected. And when they're finding plastic on the North Pole where nobody is, like that's a problem, right?
That's a big
So
problem.
yeah,
That's a big problem. And again,
it doesn't go away.
exactly. It's we're doing it every day. So tomorrow we're going to be doing it again till eternity, unless every individual starts paying attention, and the market is going to demand something else. That's how
Hmm.
we change things in the 21st century. So us as individuals, we need to start taking care of ourselves, start demanding of ourselves and of our products different
Right.
things, and that's how we manifest change.
Exactly. So, I mean, it really is affecting everyone, and you may not even realize it may be acne on your face from just, hormonal disruption. It may be a decreased sex drive. It may be, some low level impotence in a young man. It could be so many different things. And there's so many different ways that you can just make small changes so that you don't support that economy. Like I use beeswax wrap instead of
Yeah,
plastic wrap. I
yeah,
use, glass containers, or stainless steel containers. And I always have a stainless steel container for water, and you can fill up anywhere. It's the best travel gear that I could ever use. And I just don't buy plastic if I can avoid it, and don't
yeah.
drink out of and or eat out, and out of plastic containers, and just start from there. And then you'll realize how easy it is to start changing your own life, and it makes a big difference over time. As well as when you go to the grocery store, have reusable bags in your trunk. Don't support the plastic, because even if you use it to pick up dog poop, you're still putting plastic in the world that doesn't need to be there, right? So
Correct.
that's a great point. So is number 4 hormonal balance in managing stress, or is managing stress number 5?
No, no, no. Definitely, we can look at it as far as part of hormonal balance because it doesn't have to be synonymous, but it's definitely one is definitely an incentive to take care of the other,
For
right? So as
sure.
far as
Yeah.
going on that path, you could definitely lump them up together.
Hmm.
Um,
I think I know what
and
5 is going to be. Can I
the
guess
fifth
on
thing,
5?
the
Can I
fifth thing
guess? Go ahead.
are hacks, or we can call them hormesis.
Okay.
Okay, um, low levels. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's kind of the big headline we can say about hormesis. But what hormesis means is, you know, when we were evolving, when we were living in caves, we relied on different cues from the environment as far as changes in our body. And a bad example that I love giving is a rabbit that changes it that changes its colors when winter comes. It's a bad example because that's not the same process in the body, but it's a good example as far as how the environment can affect the decisions our body makes. So as far as a biohacker or someone that wants to get that extra 1% in every aspect, we can look at what clues we can give our body to ramp up its anti-aging mechanisms, its regenerative mechanisms. And one of them that we've mentioned is facial massage or facial yoga. So applying that, you know, pressure on our facial muscles and small structures, applying that small amount of destruction or pulling or light pressure in order to create a stronger, thicker skin layer. So that is and one example of a hormetic process. Another would be light therapy, which I've been heavily involved in. And light therapy is an incredible subject because this really stresses. What's beautiful about light therapy is that's something our body has evolved to take advantage of naturally. Okay, light, we depend on light, or our body depends on light to understand what time of day it is, what it should do now as far as what hormones or what processes in the body it should engage in. It depends, or what stage of sleep it should enter, etc. So many things, and one of those um, one of those mechanisms that evolved is a mechanism of repairing our cells. So when we're exposed to red and near infrared light, which is abundant, obviously closer to when the sun is close to the horizon, so sunset and sunrise. There is a small enzyme in the mitochondria. That's the only thing that absorbs this light. And through that cue, it starts to clean house. It starts to kick out all the free radicals that were there. It starts to, create repair mechanisms. And that small amount of stress is really, you could really look at it as the gym for our mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. And, a few signals that are happening from that. So all the heavy pathways of inflammation that are being triggered when there is an injury, or when we eat foolishly, or when we get old. All of these mechanisms are all these pathways, all these routes basically are getting shut down because we increase our cells' ability to handle inflammation, and to give a small direction to the listener as far as exploring light therapy. We can look at it as something that we get exposed to by getting our sun exposure in the evening or in the morning. We can do it by buying a light panel that would shine on you, and again, you can do it close to when you wake up or go to sleep. Or we can go get treatments, so and compound these technologies together, and that's really the cutting edge of that technology. I, for example, was involved with consulting as far as product development of a company called Zero Gravity, and they make products called Perfectio, which are really trying to capitalize on a lot of things, stressing the skin with a little bit of heat, stressing it with vibration, stressing it with light. So we can really compound those little stressors and get beautiful results as far as sustaining renewal in our skin. And again, that would support those homework processes we asked our skin to do. We're going to mention again GHKCU because it is a type of a hack. And I love cold exposure. Okay, here written down in my notes, I wrote cryotherapy, but really it would be a sin to label this segment as cryotherapy, because cold exposure is something that really comes to us from ancient wisdom, whether it would be from Eastern Europe or Northern America. What happens when we expose our body to the cold, it is a hormetic stressor. So our body ramps up how it deals with inflammation. It produces cold shock proteins, which are helping our body really produce building blocks. So when we grow older, our body doesn't know how to fold proteins correctly. So imagine like you got your instructions on how to create a skin cell or create a process or whatever, but you don't have your glasses on, so you can't really see what you're doing. So you're not making it very well. So you could think of these heat shock when it comes to sauna, or cold shock protein when it comes to cryo, as these glasses for you to actually use the instructions you were given correctly. So I think in that aspect we can say heat and cold exposure. Okay, sauna and cold exposure. It can be ice bath. My favorite system is the Wim Hof system, which involves breathing and cold exposure. That's the route I would take if I were, and meditation. That's the route I would take if I was an individual listening to it. But explore it. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing journey to explore.
Those are some great points. Those are really, really great points. I love them. And I love red light and infrared light therapy. I think it's really huge for circadian rhythms and cell
Yeah.
repair. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like you have to have all of your skin and your face and your eyes exposed to the red infrared, or can you just put a small area of the skin, exposed to it and not an entire panel and still get results? Is it the amount of skin that's exposed or just the fact that some of it's exposed?
That, you know what? The answer is just yes. And then explain why.
It's not all or nothing, huh?
No, no, not at all. Not
Yeah.
at all. That's such a huge field, because let's start with the fact that if you're going to go to a chiropractor, or if you're going to go to anyone who wants to use light therapy to shut down your nerve, to overload your nerve with so much stimulation that's going to shut down, that's also possible. So there
Mm,
are, it is a bell curve. It is something that we want to, that there is a certain amount that's optimal. There is something that doesn't work because it's too little, and something that will give us an adverse result if we want rejuvenation and stimulation, if we had too much of it. So that's what we're going to start with. And then we want to look at systemic, and we want to look at local. So as we know, if we're going to get a sunburn, it might affect our inflammation systematically, but it's not going to affect there's not going to be pigmentation suddenly on my knee because I got sunburn on my face.
mhm.
And because UV rays are also type of light, that's an example I like to give. As far as light therapy is concerned, the rejuvenating results we're getting are by cells that absorb this light. Okay, so they're not systemic. What is systemic is the release of those stressors from our mitochondria. So by stressing the powerhouse of our cell, we make it clean itself, from lack of a better term. And what it releases is nitric oxide, which makes our blood vessels expand. And that is something that is systemic to a certain amount, and kind of puts a cap on how much benefit we can get from light therapy. So if we wanted to get a small amount of results per area, but we want a more holistic treatment, maybe just for our general benefit, we can expose a large area to the light, and then we're going to releasing a lot of nitric oxide at once, a lot of that we're going to expand a lot of blood vessels at once, and we can't overdo it as far as feeling lethargic afterwards, especially if we
Okay.
do it kind of day after day after day after day. If we want to find a biohacking way to produce the best results where I want them, and kind of be able to push the envelope, we do want to expose the parts that matter to us. So, for example, because of my love to getting beaten up, I got slammed on my head 2 weeks ago,
Mm,
and my neck was sore. So for me, I want to get a lot of results on that area, so I exposed that area predominantly to the light. I would say another thing is the farther away we go from the light, the less penetration it has, because it's just not as strong. So if we want to get results for our skin only, we can have the light farther away. And when I say farther away, really close would mean up to 6 inches. And farther away, a mid-range would be 12 to 18 inches from the light source. And it really depends on the light strength. And 24 to 32 inches is considered far already.
Okay. So if someone wants to use it for rejuvenation for their face, you can apply it, you can stand in front of, like I use a Juve, for instance.
Mhm.
So you're in front of the light for those kind of high real estate areas that you want to not age as quickly in, right? But if
Yeah,
someone is a cyclist or an athlete, then you put, just say you're a cyclist, then you're going to stand in front of it with your legs being the
yeah.
closest proximity. Now, do you recommend it in the mornings? Do you recommend it after a workout or before a workout if it's boosting nitric oxide? When's the best time to do it?
Very intuitively correct. The fact that you said before a workout, because a lot of people don't think of that. And like I kind of referred to when we spoke about NAD, it really is when we want the effects. That's when we want to time the result, right? So
Mhm.
if we want our muscles to perform at their best or our skin to perform at its best, we want to do it before that action. If we want our skin to or our muscles to recover at their best, we do it after. Um, I'll give you an example. There is, we're going to go back to Korea because, as we know, Koreans are very interested in their skin and doing a fantastic job in the skin health realm right now. There is a fantastic research published on how light therapy done before sun exposure has minimized the effect of UV rays on the skin. So it really depends when you want your cells performing optimally.
What's the mechanism of action for that? I'm so curious.
Good question. So we can go into specific cells and the cells that we activate, but in order to keep it on an entry level, we're going to talk about what happens to the cell. So obviously, the more energy or the more vibrant or the more active, when I say active, I mean correctly active, the cell is, the better it's going to manage damage. Okay, so that's gonna the first thing we need to understand. Now, what happens when we expose? So our cells depend on mitochondria for energy creation. Um, Mitochondria creates waste in the form of nitric oxide, and it cannot use oxygen as well. So nitric oxide competes with oxygen. It wins sometimes, and that oxygen that lost becomes disgruntled and becomes a free radical. So it is now destructive. And that process is obviously very bad. What the light does, it penetrates to the mitochondria and breaks the bond between the oxygen utilizing part, which is called CCO, and the mitochondria, and I'm sorry, nitric oxide, and releases it from the mitochondria where it dilates blood vessels and does fantastic things. But what it allows the cells to do is it brings them to homeostasis, and it allows them to perform their tasks for a short amount of time optimally, but as an accumulated result, much better. Okay. And then when we go to the sun, the cell is less affected from that damaging rays
Mhm.
because it can handle it better because it knows what to do better.
It's prepared, and I think that is the greatest summary of all of these hacks.
Yeah.
Basically, what we're doing is we're trying to utilize every resource that we know about at this time, which there's more being discovered every day because this is such a growing industry. So we're
Yeah.
trying to use all of these resources to basically optimize the potential that the body naturally has. We're not trying to change the body doing anything. We're just trying to give it all the tools it needs to optimize its effects. And just like you brought up all of the different ways you can utilize red and near infrared and infrared light therapy, you can use it to benefit you if you do it properly. I think the same thing is with supplements. So I wanted to go back briefly. Before we wrap up, I want to go back briefly to antioxidants because,
Mhm.
some people will say do not take antioxidants after heavy exercise.
Mhm.
You may want to have antioxidant rich foods, yet supplementing with antioxidants after exercise is going to defeat the purpose of what we want exercise to do to the body in order for it to strengthen. So, what are your thoughts on the best timing of taking antioxidants?
So, that's the trickiness of inflammation, right? Sometimes we want it.
Hmm.
So inflammation basically is a process that the body uses to signal where things need to get better. And if we completely block those signals, then we can blunt some of the benefits of exercise. So a few things that we can do in order to time better our antioxidants is, first of all, getting them from food where then they are less like a switch. They're more like a slow release, just to make things simple. Okay. Our body takes time to digest something and then the release is slower. We can also, so what my kind of personal hack is I consume berries before exercise. So I'm not consuming them where there would still be in my stomach and I'm gonna have a hard time during my exercise. But an hour, 45 minutes before my exercise, I'm gonna consume berries, which are rich in polyphenols and antioxidants. Um, and That's my little hack. Just something, an anecdote, something that has been very, very, very popular in the last year or two or three in the actually Silicon Valley and the biohackers there, is metformin, which is a diabetes medication, and and that's also a hormetic mitochondrial stressor
Hmm.
that stresses a different part of the mitochondria than light therapy. And what it has been shown, or we're starting to understand, is that it does blunt the effects of mainly anaerobic exercise, so muscle mass, etc. And that is because it's not 1 + 1 in that aspect does not work. It isn't equal to 3. These effects blunt each other. So that's an amazing question, and these things do exist. So sometimes a lot of stress is too much, and sometimes compounding stress isn't ideal. And that is why when you do look to mix and match stressors, you definitely want to do your research and make sure you're doing it correctly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, I'm going to summarize really quickly and correct me because
Yep,
this is huge amounts of information. I'm definitely going to want to have you on again. You're
it'll be my
insane.
pleasure.
Yeah, I'd love it. I love it, Amitai. Thank you. Okay, so top 5 beauty hacks in summary. Nourish your skin topically. Look for hero ingredients, like in the Young Goose skincare line, including GHKCU, fermented resveratrol, and NAD plus. Make sure it's formulated properly
Correct.
because if it's not formulated properly, it's not going to get to where it needs to be active in the skin. So it's not as simple as some of the marketing out there may make you believe. Number
Yeah.
two, increase the magical ingredient NAD plus in the body. You can do that through intermittent fasting, high intensity interval training, sauna, and then look for topical NAD plus, like such as in the form of NR, as found in the Young Goose Care Nighttime Repair Cream.
Yeah, and definitely supplement on it that you can find. Just a few companies that you can look at is Do Not Age, is a great company. True Niagen is probably the most famous one. Elysium and their
Basis.
product Basis. If you want something that is more brain specific, is Nativum. That's also, I know they were on the Bulletproof podcast.
Nadovim, how do you spell that?
Nadovim.
Nadovim. Okay, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah.
No, that one. Okay, Nadovim.
Or look at NADIVs, and that is a whole subject that we haven't touched, but NAD and the way we get it into our body and sustain it and take care of other molecules that harm it is really not only a subject on its own, but a legit research subject that companies are pouring tens of millions of dollars into, whether it would be Estee Lauder, whether it would be Nestle,
Yeah,
under
Nestle
Nestle,
Health. Yeah.
yeah, under Nestle Health. So, and a lot of, so I think 6 Nobel Prize winners are involved in different researches of NAD in the body. So just saying, that's
We may
there's a
just
lot
have a
to
whole
do there.
podcast on NAD, actually, topical and systemic applications. Actually, I think that's what we're going to do next. So
Yeah.
3 is supplementation, nutrition, focusing on deficiencies. Re-listen to that for all those pearls. 4, hormonal balance, managing stress internally, externally. Look at your toxins, your mental health, inflammatory foods and processes, ionizing radiation. I would add in the relationships and the connections you have with people. That will help as well. And then 5,
Mindfulness.
mindfulness, yes. And 5 is your hormesis hacks, which I love those. Facial massage stimulation, red and infrared light therapy for circadian rhythms and cell repair. And then getting out of your comfort zone, doing some cold exposure, cryo, and sauna. We're too temperature regulated. We don't need to sit at 68, 70 degrees all the time. It's okay to go outside when it's cold with a tank top on and, and then get a little sweaty, right? So you don't have to pay for expensive things. Just get out of the comfort zone.
Well, I think temperature is underrated.
I agree. And it's pretty free. It's not
It's
expensive
free.
to do,
It's free, and when we realize that our circadian rhythm is determined by temperature, so the
right?
way our body communicate, so the best way for our body to communicate holistically, to communicate a single message to the entire body, it's very difficult to do chemically. Very difficult. It's almost impossible to release one chemical, hormone, um, peptide,
NAD.
and whatever that would be. Normally, a message going outwards would not go well if it would be chemical. So temperature is a great way for us to communicate with our body and for our body to communicate with all its organs unilaterally.
hmm
And
And
once you
light
kind
as
of realize
well.
that, excuse me,
And light as well. Light and
yes,
temperature are really the
yes,
signals to communicate, and everything is through messengers in our body. So if we're blunting that communication coming into our body, of course everything's going to be off.
correct, correct,
Yeah.
look into proper sleep or whatever that would be, and you always meet again and again temperature. So by deciding to manipulate temperature and push our body's core temperature to one or one tolerable extreme or another, the benefits you will get from it are amazing.
I love that. Thanks, Amitai. Okay, before we finish up, I would like you to answer my last question I ask everyone. How do you define radiance?
I would define radiance. Obviously, this changes a lot. If you meet me after I hung out with my life partner, I'll just say her, But I really define radiance recently by the message I get from the person in front of me that they are connected with their purpose in life.
Hmm.
Um, when when you're doing something that you feel that you have purpose for, you get radiance, which is more than one tangible ingredient. It's that intangible feeling we get from someone else, whether it would be from the look of their skin, whether it would be from the width of their smile, whether it would be from the inspiration they give you. That um, entire experience um, really translates, as far as I'm concerned, to an overall radiance. So again, when someone is mindful, when he's connected with him or herself, they are radiant in my eyes.
Yeah, right. And you don't have to just have one life purpose. I mean, you've proven through your multifaceted life that you can do many, many things of purpose and constantly evolve and change. So I recommend everybody listen to Amitay's podcast, Biohacking Beauty. Check out his skincare line, Young Goose. I'm going to do some before and afters when I start it and finish, especially around the eyes. And I'm
Great.
excited to report back. And then we're going to have another podcast because you can see we can talk for a really long time about a lot of topics. You're a huge amount of information, and I just love talking to you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to really delving into a specific subject and really geeking out on it. That was just like, the tip of the iceberg. So really, Jen, thank you very, very much for this conversation. We we obviously like talking to each other, so hopefully we'll get a lot of chances to do that.
We sure will.
Yeah.